You guys, if Dupont Circle had a theme song, you know who it would be by? Dua Lipa. You know why? Because Dupont is fun, like Dua Lipa and her songs. It's always great. It's a classic. It has staying power, and the kids like it. See, Dua Lipa and her songs have all those things in common with Dupont Circle. So Dupont holds a special place in my heart. I actually lived here for 10 years in the first and last of my single girl days, and I wouldn't trade that time for anything. What is so continuously appealing through the decades about living in Dupont Circle? Today, we're going to talk about that. I am Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama. I do these videos for you every week. I break down living in DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. I have lived here over 20 years, and I know these areas pretty well, and I go deeper than anybody. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss new videos. Of the 109 neighborhoods that Niche.com tracks in the DC area, Dupont Circle ranks 12th of best neighborhoods for professionals, 15th for best overall. And then for families, Dupont actually ranks 39th out of 109 neighborhoods. Now, I'm not really a Niche.com fan because so much of the information that I find on there is generally faulty, outdated, probably written by AI. But I would generally agree with the rankings. It is one of the better neighborhoods for both professionals and also, I would say, overall. For families, yes, it's just outside the top third. Now, if you're the kind of parents who don't really want to trade your lifestyle in from when you were young and single and fancy-free, when you have kids and then leave the neighborhood, the downsides of actually living there might not matter. That actually might be good stuff for you. So let's talk about all of this. All right, so Dupont Circle, you probably, now that you heard how wonderful it is, you probably want to know where it is. All right, well, it's really right in the center of the city. It's a small neighborhood. It's got, its boundaries are Florida Avenue on the north, 15th Street on the east side, 22nd Street on the west side, and then M Street to the south. So it's about 7 blocks north and south and 7 blocks east-west, if you don't count the half blocks that are in between some of these other blocks, right? If you're just counting the straight lettered blocks like P, Q, R Street, not the ones that are halfway between them. The actual circle of Dupont has an inner and an outer ring and then 5 roads or 10 different spokes that go through it. Actually, I guess it's really 12 different spokes because Connecticut Avenue is split by the underpass on both the north side of the circle and the south side of the circle. Now that you've heard all of that and how many roads go in and out, I think it's probably, like, you probably already concluded that it's kind of a disaster to navigate, whether you're in car, whether you're on foot, or whether you're on a bike. It's hard for everybody. So the streets that run through Dupont are Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. New England represent. And then you've got 19th Street that goes north-south and P Street that goes east-west, and they intersect here as well. The Red Line Metro runs through Dupont and has a stop underground right in Dupont Circle. Now, north and east of the circle has really a different feel than south and west, which is the older part of Dupont. That older part is closer to downtown. It's got more commercial and it just feels like a little bit more office-y. You'll have a condo building, but then maybe an office next to it. The northern and eastern parts of Dupont are more like leafy and residential, and they really combine like that city living and walkability and streets framed with trees, and then they've got green space and parks and all that good stuff. All right. You want to know about the real estate? Let's talk about the real estate. I know this really well because I own real estate in Dupont. Dupont is urban, it's dense living. There are more condos than you are going to find single-family homes. There used to be only single-family homes here and a few apartment buildings, but as prices rose, homes got carved up into condos to make living here more affordable and provide more housing for more people. So Dupont has row homes, condos, and apartments. One of the most famous condo buildings here is the Cairo. The Cairo was built in 1894, and it was the tallest building in DC, thus spurring all sorts of controversy. After a lot of successful lobbying, the Height of Buildings Act was passed in 1899, which outlines the type of street that will dictate how the maximum height of the building that's basically on it, right? So smaller, more narrow residential streets can't have these towering buildings like you might see in New York. And that was basically to keep DC a low city, let the sunlight get through, and all of that great stuff that make DC what it is. The average price of all the condos in Dupont Circle over the last 6 months is $545,000. The median price is $519,000. So this includes studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. Now, if we break it down by number of bedrooms, the average for the studios is $261,000. So you can see that changes. There are studios here. You will see that there are definitely efficiencies in studios. 1 bedroom sold at an average price of $418,000. The median price on the 1 bedrooms is $400,000. That means there's as many below 400 as there are above 400. The average price for 2 bedrooms is $725,000, and the median price on the 2 bedrooms is $688,000. Now, Dupont is actually famous for its gorgeous Victorian homes that were built in the early 1900s. So prices for these gorgeous, gorgeous grand dames can run up into the $3 million range. Now, you can get a smaller row home for just over $1 million. The average price of all row homes in Dupont is $1.877 million. The median price is $1.75 million. So that kind of helps tell you sort of what these pricing differentials are and why those Victorians were appealing to people to go in and maybe cut it up into 4 levels, right? And there's 4 different condos. And so you have a house that now would only house 1 family, and it now can house 4 families, once each level gets converted to its own unit. So many of the large Victorians that are still in existence that haven't been changed into condos and redeveloped have apartments that are rentable on the lower level. The English basement apartment, and these help subsidize the mortgage payment. There's actually a very, very steady supply for these rentals as well. Dupont tends to kind of it's really interesting. It's one of those neighborhoods that almost like all generations feel okay with, right? Like you have a newly graduated adult child, 22 years old, they're moving to this city. They like Dupont because it's got enough of a city vibe for kind of their lifestyle and easy commuting, but it's also a good neighborhood that their parents can feel good about because they realize that, their kid is in a good neighborhood. It's very community centric, and like same thing, transportation is nearby, and they don't feel like, oh God, why is my child living here? This doesn't feel safe at all. So it has some mass appeal for sure. Now, is there anything fun to do here? My God, you guys. It's actually better than when I lived there 10 years ago. Darn these kids, I had to move to a bigger place for them and the dogs. So Dupont is fun for everybody, and I'm actually not joking. So the Circle alone is a very, very huge gathering place for many people. So you will often see people just stop and sit here on their way home from work. They might be reading a book. They might be people watching. Now, the Baron Hotel Pub is here, and it is home to the Comedy Loft of DC. The Phillips Collection Museum is also in Dupont Circle. Now, do you miss old board games like Trouble, Risk, Operation? We have Operation. Sorry. We also have Sorry, but it's not like it used to be. Or Hungry Hungry Hippos? Well, you can check out the Boardroom on Connecticut Avenue, which is a pub with vintage board games. So aside from games, what else makes these people absolutely amazingly cool? Their motto on their website is put down your phone and interact at the Boardroom. They also don't have a kitchen. So you might be wondering, why would I just go there, play games and drink? No, they allow you to bring food in, and they actually make suggestions in the neighborhood of places that you can go pick up some food. This is like, when I see this place, I'm like, this is the kind of cool place that another city would have that's much cooler than DC. Like I could see this in Nashville. I could see this in Atlanta. I could see this in Baltimore. But no, we've got it here in DC, which is pretty cool. Here it is. It's so exciting. One of the best bookstores and cafes is here. Long known as Kramer Books, it's now just called Kramer's. They were always great, but they're under new ownership as of several years ago. And this feels like a new institution of an old institution for DC. I love their books. I also love their pie. And the new ownership, nothing changed. It's just like they took something that was great and they made it better. So that's something that, you should know. There was a point when Kramer's was actually considering moving, which was it was actually heartbreaking to me because I feel like it's a giant staple of the neighborhood. Seems like they closed the chapter on that. See what I did there? Oh my God, mom jokes. Close the chat. Whatever. All right. Well, Kramer's is excellent at curating an interesting selection of books for kids and for adults. Their children's section encourages kids to read, and it really makes reading fun. And so this is like easily a place that the whole family can spend an afternoon. They host book readings, author events, things like that. I don't think that anybody's going to invite me to the Comedy Club Loft of DC anytime soon with my mom jokes. I'm going to keep them going, though. So Dupont Underground, that is where the old trolley lines used to go through DC under the Circle. Well, when the trolley cars were retired, they had stores under the Circle after that, and you used to be able to go down there and do some shopping. But eventually that got closed up. There's multiple theories on why that got closed up, either crime or people doing unsavory things down there. Regardless, that space has been vacant for decades. And then they finally reopened it several years ago as an art venue, and they call it Dupont Underground, right? So they're not open every day, but if you go to Dupont Underground's website and you check the calendar, you will actually see their events calendar. It has everything coming up that they're doing, which is really cool because then you can get tickets and you can go run around underneath Dupont Circle, which frankly I think is really cool. So I also bet you did not know there's a mini golf course in Dupont. It's called Swingers Crazy Golf. I called them because I wanted to see if they would host us for a end of year 4th grade party. And they were basically like, thanks, but no. But you can come in. I'm like, I get it. I wouldn't want kids ruining my facility either because the photos and everything that you see of this place makes it look gorgeous, right? Who wants kids ruining it? Now, you can also tour the Hurech House Museum and Mansion. German immigrant Christian Hurech had a DC brewery, and you can tour that home and learn about DC history. I've done it. And it's very cute. There are a couple low-key awesome bars in Dupont as well. So, I mean, I have to mention Larry's Lounge. Commodore and Larry's Lounge are both places that are like DuPont's version of Cheers. Norm! So Larry's Lounge is where the Hubs and I used to spend a lot of time before the kids came along. It's a great, great bar. The Commodore, actually a client recommended this to me, and I went in there. They were playing The Offspring. I was like, I've found my home. Like I found it. This is where I want to like spend the rest of my days. It was very exciting. There are also events that come to 17th Street. The DuPont Drag Race is the week of Halloween. It is literally one of the reasons I bought my condo 20 years ago. My agent, now really good friend, walked in and said, look, you can see the drag race. And he was not incorrect. You can. And these are actually not cars drag racing, just in case you thought that it might be. It is actually high heel drag race. It's drag queens in high heels racing up the street on 17th Street. It's awesome. Now, you may wonder why there's a drag race, okay? Well, while the neighborhood's very diverse in present day, Dupont used to be, many, many moons ago, a marsh. And then as development moved from downtown K Street up to Georgetown to the north and east, Dupont became a place of mansions for the wealthy. As those mansions were passed to the next generations, and then the turbulent economic times of the 1930s hit, many of those mansions were sold. They either fell into disrepair or they were sold. And then a lot of them ended up being sold to other countries, which is why Dupont has a very high embassy population here. It's second to Massachusetts Avenue. So when Dupont fell into disrepair and then it sort of started to come back in the 70s, it became the epicenter of gay culture in DC. And along with it came gentrification. So by the year 2000, the prices had started to rise quite a bit. And this became like this really solid neighborhood with very steady home values. All right. Can I live here with my children, Melissa? Well, you can. There's fun for kids here, and there's fun for, your fur children too, because I also have dogs. So Ross Elementary School was at one point going to close. And then the families in the neighborhood banded together and sent their kids there, helping the school kind of turn itself around. So the threats of closure were in the early 2000s. And then there was a principal, there was a fight. The principal finally left and then got a new principal in, and everybody was, open to making this train get back on the tracks and work. Now Ross has become one of DC's most sought after elementary schools. They have a playground. It's actually open to the public on the weekends and after the kids go home from aftercare, which is 6 p.m. There is also another park in the area that is Stead Recreation Center. If you've been in the area, you've definitely heard of this spot. Playground has an area for big kids and an area for the little wobbly toddlers so that everybody has a safe space to hang out and play. Although this park is not dog friendly, there's still plenty of places that are dog friendly. We have the S Street Dog Park, which is at the corner of 17th, the tri-corner, 17th New Hampshire and S Street. It's a large fenced-in dog park that's covered with AstroTurf. This actually used to be a triangle of dirt, but I don't know. The city decided we were going to throw some money at this and we are going to fix it up. The neighborhood actually banded together. And this happened when I lived there, that everybody said we want to get a place where, you know, just the smart dogs were able to play in this unfenced triangle. We want the dumb dogs to be able to play too. The ones that don't know you can't run out in the middle of the street, you're going to get run over. So people actually line up outside the fence, which is really funny just to watch the dogs play. And like when the girls and I go by there, they want to do that too. There's a water fountain for the dogs, and this place is always filled with people. So there are lots of friends for your little pup to play with and stay entertained. Now, while we are on the topic of doggies, I have to mention one of the best, most long-standing pet stores in not only Dupont, but the city. They're also groomers, and that is called Doggy Style. A friend of mine, Krista, owns this. She's been in the neighborhood for over 20 years, and it's just, she's excellent. She's amazing. She actually tries all the treats and the dog food because she wants to make sure that it's like healthy for the dogs. And the stuff has like real ingredients. It's not just like nonsense you've never heard of. Now, while we're talking about people who eat, let's talk about food. So there's so much packed into this 7 block by 7 block neighborhood that it's almost impossible to go through all of it. On Connecticut Avenue, let's do that first. There's quite a few places to eat. You've got Bistro du Coin, which is French food, and they've got mussels and fries. Everybody loves it. It is always packed. It is always delicious. There's also Alero, which is probably one of the best Mexican restaurants that we have here in DC. There's also Thai Chef Street Food and Zorba's Greek, which is closer to Dupont Circle. Then you've got more of the fast casual, plus the only Krispy Kreme you've got in the city is right here in Dupont Circle. I'm going to tell you, don't even believe that for a second I didn't have a bad day or even a good day and go to Krispy Kreme and get a donut and sit in the circle eating it aggressively. On the south side of the circle, there's Tate, which is a cafe and bakery from Boston that opened up several locations all over DC to much fanfare and approval. Now, Mexican food on 18th Street. We've got L'Oreal Plaza. This is across from Larry's Lounge. Their patio is amazing, and a lot of people will bring their dogs to L'Oreal as well. It also gets ridiculously packed, but it's easier to get in there during the week and during the days when it's pretty quiet. But their frozen drinks are amazing. They come in a pitcher, and they're awesome. I'm particular to the white wine sangria. Downtown on 19th Street, you have the Palm Steakhouse, which is really more like upscale, but it's kind of like old school, like in a way 80s like feel, like of a steakhouse, like creamed corn. They have that kind of stuff, like the clog your arteries kind of stuff. Now, the 17th Street corridor, as they call it, has a lot of restaurants packed into a little 2-block stretch here. 4 blocks, I guess, if, like I said, you count the half streets. Sacrificial Lamb is at the corner of 17th and R, and that is not to be missed. This restaurant doesn't look like a lot from the outside. Like when you look at the front, you're like, that's a restaurant. Do not let this fool you, party people. It is the most delicious Pakistani and Indian food. They do an incredible delivery service as well. They've been here for close to 20 years and they've got staying power. I'm going to link them so that you can order food from there. Agora is another favorite of mine. It's on 17th Street. They were starting out as like, oh, we're Greek and Mediterranean tapas, and then they changed it to Turkish tapas. As a Greek, I feel like I shouldn't really be purveying a Turkish institution here, but their food's delicious. You can order sampling of like all different foods, and everything's really so good. Also, we've got Floriana on 17th Street. It's pretty highly rated, and they deliver some pretty consistently great Italian food. Don't miss the neighborhood staple, Annie's, not named after my dog Annie, but Annie's Steakhouse, which has been in the business for decades and decades and decades. There's also Hank's Oyster Bar, which is around the corner on Q Street if you are a fan of oysters or other delicious seafood items. Also very highly rated. Hank's, yum yum. We have Commodore on 17th Street. Now, I mentioned that as the bar, the one that plays The Offspring that I love so much. But they also have a very low-key, sort of good menu with just some staple items, but you can eat there for sure. Now, let's do grocery stores. The obvious one here is going to be Safeway on 17th Street, but if DC had a meme, it would be, what's your Safeway called? There was several different Safeway nicknames. We had Secret Safeway, Senior Safeway, Social Safeway, so many nicknames. Anyway, do you want to know what the one on 17th Street was called? Soviet Safeway. Oh, it's inconsistent ability to have long lines and nothing on the shelves. Soviet Safeway, party people. It's better now. It got better while I was living there. All right, Sunday, Dupont also has a farmer's market. It's a huge hit. It draws people in from all over the city in the same way that Eastern Market in Capitol Hill does. So Dupont is an iconic neighborhood famous for being very consistent, but also for reinventing itself. So being less than a mile from downtown is a very, very convenient neighborhood here for everyone from young professionals to families to empty nesters. And everyone cohabitates here peacefully, right? There's not like the, bickering or fights or anything like that, the get off my yard kind of thing. And many people actually stay here for decades and generations. I actually think that one day I may end up moving back there once the kids are gone and I can move back into a small space with the hubs and tell the kids, stay at a hotel. We don't have room. No room at the inn. Anyway, that's that. If you have any questions about Dupont Circle, I will be more than happy to help you. My contact info is coming next.